Okay.
Here for the time for some sort of reason.
Leanne's not here, but we can start without Leanne, can we? Or no minute taker. Wait. Yeah, she can. We'll take this. So, Mike, is this your very last paper? Well, we've got one.
Yes, unless you want me to respond to issues on the staff update or the other stuff. No, but yes, it is.
Your very last paper. We should have this. We've got it videoed for posterity. Off you go then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No.
Then you can run out the door.
God.
You join me, Mike.
All I'm going to say is, well, the paper is self-explanatory. It's an update really from the Joint Committee, and the Joint Committee is progressing with the development of the strategy, and I think the key thing for all of this is the ongoing really constructive commitment from all three councils into this process, which is really great. And what we're looking for here is for this council just to endorse the milestones that have been achieved to date.
Thank you, Mike. I love those presentations. But Peter, I would like you to add to it.
Yes, happy to do so, Chair. This really should have come to the council a bit earlier than this, but the work that's been done hadn't been peer reviewed. There were some delays in getting that process completed, which is why there's been some delay in the joint committee that I chair adopting the reports and being able to recommend that they be accepted by this council. So unless there are some questions, some more questions about the process, which of course some councillors are actually involved in, I'm happy to move the recommendations, Chair.
Then we will accept that as a mover. A seconder to. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. So we've got a financial provision. All happy with that?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Page 40.
I'm the wrong one. 1, 2, and 3, sorry. We have a mover and a seconder. Seconder. Any further discussion? Do you want to? You've had your word, Paul. Do you want?
I just want to concur with Mike's comments that it's I'm really enjoying being part of one of the observers on one of the panels, and it seems to be really working really well.
Any other discussion? I have a comment because we don't want to let a paper just like that just goes so quick, really. This is a huge issue that is requiring large volume of work, especially from Peter, and I watch him go off and do this work, which is so important to our region. It hasn't affected people to the extent that it might yet, and so it's not high on the agendas, but it will become high on the agendas. So just want to thank everyone involved, and especially you, Mike, too. You've been there. It looks like Tom wants to say something as well, so I'll just wait. You can just wait until I've had my little speech, Tom.
It just reminded me that one of these meetings was on a Friday at 5 o'clock.
Yes, that's right.
And it was.
And he couldn't have a glass of wine with me, actually.
It had to have perfect attendance. I mean, this room was packed with people, and who worked hard until 8 o'clock Friday night doing their thing. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, that needs to be recorded because I was aware of that, and I didn't state that because I'd asked Peter to come and have a glass of wine, and he said I couldn't believe that he's going to a meeting at 5 o'clock on Friday. So well done, Peter, for the work and for the work and the effort that you've put in, Mike, because you've had to send some tough messages and talk about people, about effects moving down the coast, and not always everybody's always understood the issues here, and it needed someone of your persuasion to tell it to them straight. So I just want to really say thank you very much for that. So,
Tom has prompted me, Chair, I probably should also acknowledge the members of both the Northern and Southern panels who are devoted to the cause, and as you all know, this is a bottom-up strategy. And they do give up a lot of their time. They're committed to the process. They work pretty hard and diligently to try and find the solutions, and they're only halfway through their efforts so far. But I think that it would be remiss of this council not to acknowledge the efforts that they're putting in, and also, of course, the efforts that Mike, over a period of 2.5 years, has put in as well.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour of 1, 2 and 3? Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you. So on item 12, we've got that's the HBRC. Are those guys going to come in for that, and when are they coming? So we should make sure that's. Do you know when HBRC is?
No, that's a question, is it?
HBRC, when they're coming in. So when they do, we'll move to them. So
Are they coming in for their report?
yeah, I presume so. Item 12, capital structure, scope and process. Andrew, this is you, isn't it?
That is me. It's, dare I say it, Chairman? This is my last paper.
We'll have to do another speech about you.
I don't want to give you too many opportunities. I got the last word last night, actually, Rex. I think that's why we'll leave it.
Yep.
There you go.
No, you're on.
All right,
You're on.
all right. So look, I don't necessarily propose to go through this line blow by blow, unless councillors want me to. It really just sets up a process around having a look at, given a few drivers that we've got around the council's balance sheet, not least the council's dependence on dividends for its operating budget versus the use of the capital itself for development projects, obviously in the water storage area as well as the port. It's just this is just designed to take a stock take of all of that, but I would say it's the forerunner to probably some potentially reasonably significant work around the port in particular. And the only other thing that I've written into the scope, which is potentially able to be moulded, is that it can provide an opportunity to just recast over some of the other activities sitting on the council's, either in the council's activity scope or alternatively on the council's balance sheet, that have got a commercial dimension to them, and asking the question about where and best do they govern from. I can do that, the scope can do that as well. So final comment to make is there's in the recommendations, I just look at a possible small advisory or governance group for it that would report back to the council, full council, and my advice would be that you'd want to do this piece of work, if you're going to do it, you want to do it well in advance of the LTP, really, because the LTP, the forthcoming LTP, is going to be the critical planning document for the council around what it does with its balance sheet, and particularly new developments, large-scale developments, port, etc. Right. So hopefully it's reasonably self-explanatory.
It is.
Yep.
Questions? Neil?
Well, Mr. Chair, this piece of work essentially is under the initial, if you like, tutelage of the Finance and Risk Committee, subcommittee, but I think it's important that it, in fact, comes back to council directly, and I just wondered, I know it's on that work program, but it's currently silent on that, and I just wondered whether we ought to have it as a direct report back to full council, or do we need, I'm thinking about double debate in those scenarios. Should it go to strategic and corporate? Be interested in guidance on what councillors feel about that. So that's one issue. The other issue is potentially we could add the chair of the port into that mix as well as another scenario, and I just wondered how people, given that that's by far the biggest asset to consider, should we nominate that as a part of this process now? So I'd be interested to hear people's view on that. One, where it should report, and two, should it be slightly expanded to cover all the bases there?
before any questions, I like the idea of incorporating that this committee as a direct reports directly back to council. I think that should be stated in here. Debbie?
Speaking on behalf of my absent colleague here, I think it should be double debated. And you can all hear Alan suggesting that, so I'd concur with that back through CNS. In terms of the makeup of the group, and you have skills and experience in investment infrastructure and publicly owned assets, so I'm wondering how we came to choose one councillor over the 9 of us, and I'm also wondering about, you know, the 2 independent members. I'm not quite sure where we're going here with setting it up with just, yeah, I don't know how you've just connected this to one councillor anyway. Yeah, I don't like to be abdicating our responsibilities as a councillor, and I keep on seeing it happening, so I just have a flag there. But how have we got to just one councillor?
Well, I guess it's all I'm doing here, in comment to that, is saying that if you're in the middle of a detailed work program, having that rolled through and updates with the full council and debated every time is probably not terribly efficient. That'd be my first point. And secondly, irregardless of the composition of it, and I think the chairman of the ports is probably quite a good idea actually. I think you need some, you do need some, a bit of external help with this, in the sense that, and why I'd say that is because I'll be sort of keep it fairly high level, but I'd use the port as a case in point. The port doesn't operate in isolation. It's a regional port, but the reality is that increasingly it's operating in an environment which has got a hinterland well beyond Hawke's Bay, and it's in a whole dynamic with other ports which is where it needs, whatever the composition of that group is, there's some pretty big sort of moving pieces and development issues coming down the pipe, in my view, probably, right? And that needs to be thought through quite strategically, and it's a bigger issue than just looking at through the lens of a Hawke's Bay port. So what I'm trying to do is simply say haven't tried to recommend anybody particularly, but I just think you need a careful formation of group, and I don't think it should be too big. But ultimately, sorry if I can say this though, Councillor Hewitt, it's ultimately any decisions you make around this, fundamentally any decision making that comes out of the process will be subject to more work, and it's clearly a council decision. So I think the council's the primary audience in the end.
So if you're going to take the chair of HBRC and the chair of the port, should it not be the chair of the council? Sorry, Rex, I know you just need more and more work, but we're looking for the top. Well, perhaps that's where we should be heading.
Chair, I'd like to pass comment. I actually see 2 pieces of work. One is the longer capital structure and so forth, and the assets and what have you, and the function of HBRC, which is a longer term project that would feed into the long term plan. But I think there's also another project which is in here, which is the what we're going to do with the capital development funding that the port requires, and that's something that probably needs earlier attention. And while I'm happy with the structure of this advisory committee for the longer term one, I actually think the chairman of the port and you should be added for the second one.
Perhaps I should just comment first on to we have huge capital issues going forward, Debbie, and we it's just started out thing. We do need who in our community can assist us with this, and you know, all sorts of names popped up that very high profile people with sort of expertise. I mean, Brian Martin's name came up, who's has huge he's just one, but several names came up of people that could help us through understanding the capital issues. So the objective was to put together a group of people who had the expertise and who were involved, and that's why adding the port I think is a really sensible thing, who could come back to council and say, look, this is what we think, and then we make the decision. I would be happy to go on, but I would also be very happy and would like the chair of the Corporate and Strategic Committee, because that is our financial committee, really. So that would mean if I went on, there would be 2 councillors, the chair of the port, chair of HBRC, and 2 commercial. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. That'd be fine. That wouldn't be too many. So, and they just thrash out the issues of the capital structures as going forward. And I think we do need that, really, separate from here. Otherwise, we're just going to get a huge debate. And I don't think it's a great environment to come to that kind of finality, or even 2 or 3 options. That's what we should be debating here. That was the objective. And I'd be happy to go on as an additional to the chair of the Corporate Services Committee.
Can I make perhaps, Chairman, a further comment, just reflecting on what Councillor Bevan raised? 2 projects. I would make these comments. You could break this exercise down into bite-sized chunks, and that might be another iteration when you had the governance group sitting there for tasks for them initially. But I'd also say that any development in the port immediately has a huge impact on the entire balance sheet. So it's not an isolation, really, and I just think it immediately becomes quite a strategic question in my mind. So you need to get your strategy aligned with that, even though one's out of sync with the other potentially. And what I'm really trying to say there is that, if I was looking through a risk lens, I'd be saying, well, okay, the sort of numbers that have been loosely talked about in the port development are substantive enough to have a big impact on the council's balance sheet in its entirety, with quite a bit of risk. And even then, you'd want to know that any investor would want to know that they're making that investment on the basis that they've got some real security around the whether it's containers, the cargo flowing through that over a very long period of time, which immediately gets you into a question about shipping line services, ports, other ports activity, etc. So it's you can't separate that entirely. It's not a standalone. That's the point I'm making. Really.
No, nothing is.
Yeah.
Nothing is. Nothing is definitely not a standalone on this issue. Are we happy with that makeup? Does that make you happier in that explanation? Shake. Happier. Okay. Okay. Then I suggest that my name get added to this. Do we have any other alterations? Oh, and the port, chair of the port. So basically, we're doing the chair of our industries, really, and 2 commercial, and various names have been floating around, but I guess we want to target people with expertise, but also people who the community trust their expertise. I think that's really important.
So we will delegate to our 2 councillor members the selection of those 2.
Certainly bring them back to council for consideration.
I think we should. I think we should come up with some names and bring them back. These other people will have impact too, like the guy at the port will have I think if we met those guys and say, well, an HBRC chair would have a thought there too. So I think we should probably talk to them first and then bring the names back. Peter?
On that basis, Chair, with the changes suggested, I'm happy to move.
Seconded? Any more discussion?
Just very briefly, Chair, this is an important function, and Andrew's quite right. The decisions around the port and the capital requirements for it are very big decisions that will impact on the risk profile and the balance sheet of the council. So it's important that we get on with this and that we have the right people coming back to us with recommendations.
Any more discussion? Then we'll move. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried unanimously.